Who's ready for Volume 3? But first I need to thank everybody for following the series and following me. I have some videos planned and I can't wait to show all of you. Also, if you haven't watched the first few videos, I have like a link up here for a playlist so you can catch up. Also, I'll leave them in the description. But in all these videos, I like to keep track of every Magic card reference, so if you want to play along, leave a guess in the comments and see how close you get. But let's lock in for a second and talk about what's happening. The story follows two main characters, Kono Hajime and Emi Sawatori, and we watch them navigate balancing school life, Magic the Gathering, and the potential end of the world, which is not something you really want to have to worry about when you're in middle school. Not only that, but Emi and Hajime seem to like each other, but their teen angst is getting in the way of progressing anything. And since we started, we've met a lot of new characters, seen some really good Magic gameplay, and some tender moments between our two main characters. But where we last left off had Emi leaving the group to study for a mock exam, and then we go way into the future, and it looks like she never comes back to playing Magic, lamenting on what could have been. And that is not what we want in a coming-of-age romance, people. But with that all said and done, let's get into the third volume already. We see future Emi sitting in a room looking at her old Magic cards. And is that a Herman Miller chair? Oh my goodness, those puppies are expensive. She must be making some pretty good money. Maybe giving up Magic wasn't a bad call. Anyway, she's watching a video on her iPod 4 about the Mayan prophecy that was supposed to happen in 2012. Now that's a prophecy that I know. You remember the movie? She ends up stopping on the card Spirit Link and has this thought, in a world you're not around, and then we go back to 1998, people. Really? We see Hajime cast Rain of Daggers to destroy all his opponent's creatures. And with the path open, he attacks with his Dakmor Bat and his Night Stalker to win the game he was playing. His friends then start to compliment how good of a player he's become, but are wondering why he's using rubber bands to hold his deck together if he's so serious about the game. We end up learning that Hajime just doesn't have the funds, and he's waiting for his birthday to get some extra cash. Emi overhears this conversation as some students approach Hajime asking if he could teach them how to play Magic. We then cut to Emi and Hajime on the bike as they head to the card shop, saying they haven't really seen each other since the Shibuya trip. They end up teasing each other all the way to the shop about the night of the fireworks festival, and then we get a celebration about Emi returning to the card shop, and it's a DCI tournament today. And both of our main characters are ready to show how much stronger they've gotten since the last time they've seen each other. And Hajime went X3, so yeah, he didn't do too well. But it looks like a girl Emi's in the finals against Chikara. We get to see Chikara attack with both Spike Weaver and Spike Hatcher, forcing Emi to block at least one of them with her Soul Warden. During this game, we get a moment of Hajime asking the manager what they have that he doesn't. The manager replies with an off quote from Night of Hit Parade, but the conversation gets cut short when Chikara wins the first game. Hajime gets up and asks what's happening, so Gob tells him that Chikara won because of Oath of Druids. See, if Emi has more creatures than Chikara, he gets to flip the top card of his deck until he hits one and puts it into play for free. This allows Chikara to put bigger creatures out earlier and just ignore Emi's land destruction strategy. This is a tricky spot for Emi because her creatures aren't as strong as Chikara's, and if she decides to hold back, he'll just eventually be able to play them out normally. Hajime breaks up the conversation about the game, yelling to Emi that she's supposed to show him how strong she's gotten, which pumps her up a little bit. In game 2, we see Emi use Chikara's Damri's vineyard to help her cast Cloud Chaser Eagle to destroy the vineyard that was giving her extra mana. And the reason for this is she didn't want to take damage from mana burn, which was a rule back in the day where if you had extra mana before you end your phase, you would take that mana as damage. Mana burn isn't a rule anymore, but it stuck around till 2010, so our players are going to have to deal with it for a while. On Chikara's turn, he casts Wild Growth and then uses that mana to cast Oath of Druids. On Emi's turn, she uses Tithe to find a Plains out of her deck and then casts Solitary Monk, and everyone's kind of confused why she's playing into the Oath of Druids on the field. But not Hajime. He realizes that Emi's trying to race Chikara by slugging him as she attacks with her Cloud Chaser Eagle. We then skip to turn 5 as Emi enchants her Solitary Visionary with her Imperial Armor, then she attacks with both of her Shadow creatures. And on Chikara's turn, we see him take 4 extra damage from a Sylvan Library to draw another card. This puts him down to 3 life remaining, but he casts Creeping Mold to destroy Emi's Imperial Armor. Chikara then attacks all out with his Spike creatures, forcing Emi to block with her Cloud Chaser Eagle, going down to 9 life remaining. Emi seems confident though, and attacks with her Shadow creatures right away. Chikara ends up taking 2 counters off his Spike Hatcher to gain 4 life, blanking the attack step. Emi's not done though, but she casts Cataclysm, forcing both players to sack down to 1 creature, 1 land, 1 artifact, and 1 enchantment. And that's all fine and dandy, but if we look at the board, Emi has Solitary Visionary and Chikara has Spike Hatcher, which means Chikara is going to win the race if he attacks twice. One more time. But on her turn, she holds up Spirit Link and attaches it to Chikara's Spycatcher. This will gain Emmy life for any damage that Spycatcher does, which effectively blanks it, meaning Emmy's gonna win the race now. Chikara takes a moment to reflect on the game and then concedes. Hajime is really impressed that Emmy found a way to adapt against big creatures since fighting off against Yakumo, and he realizes the adaptation is what makes Emmy strong. Just then, Emmy starts shuffling up her deck and is ready for game 3. Unfortunately, we don't get to see the game, but we do get to see that Emmy won. We also see Emmy tap Hajime on the shoulder and ask if they could talk for a second as they go outside. In the alleyway next to the shop, Emmy tells Hajime how much she appreciates the fireworks from that one night, and how he always gives her a ride on the bike. Emmy then pauses for a second, getting red in the face. Hajime, mind going wild, thinks, is Emmy about to confess? Is Emmy about to confess to him? His heart starts beating rapidly. As he is about to say something, she cuts him off and she says, "Happy birthday, here's a present for you." Come on. She tells him that he overheard them talking at the school, and Hajime opens the gift and it ends up being a deck box. We then get a flashback of Emmy talking to Yakumo about what Hajime would like for a present. Yakumo suggests a few things, but they end up not being what Emmy's looking for. And can we take a second to appreciate Yakumo's Godzilla collection? How many do you think they got? Yakumo then suggests something as we get put back into the present as Hajime is enjoying his deck box, saying that it still has the cross that the rubber bands used to make. He asked Emmy where she got it, but she says it's a secret. The conversation gets cut short though when they notice the group from the card shop watching them. Hajime runs at them to greet them as Emmy thinks to herself that she wishes the world couldn't end so she could have this feeling all the time. And then we finish out the chapter by Hajime showing everyone his new deck box at school. What a refreshing chapter. We got Emmy back, we got some good games of Magic, and a birthday present to boot. I am a little mad about the last volume baiting us, but we still have 3 chapters left of this one, so I'll let it slide. I am obligated to tell you that we had 18 Magic the Gathering cards referenced this volume, and for my predictors who guessed a high number, we have a new set coming out the next chapter, so don't worry. And that new set is Urza's Saga. Not that Urza Saga, this Urza Saga, which is the set that Hajime is telling us the lore about before he gets cut off by one of his friends. They interrupt him and ask if he's ready to open some packs. And as we get Hajime's signature card sniff, we get a bunch of new cards, like Lightning Dragon, Disruptive Student, Acridon. One of Hajime's friends talks about a combo with Horseshoe Crabs and Hermetic Study. Hajime even pulls Duress, which was the promo for this volume. And with this new card, he thinks that maybe it's time for his mono black deck to come back. His school friends then start asking about the card shop that he goes to, as Hajime shows his membership card and how much fun he's been having. The group then asks Hajime if he'll take them next week, one of them wanting to buy a bunch of Argothian worms. Which I think this guy's the same dude that had the scaled worm from volume 1, but I'm not sure. Just a little bit of a worm guy, I guess. Hajime ends up making an excuse about midterms coming up, and the rest of the group agrees. One of his friends, though, seems a little suspicious of Hajime. I wonder if this guy's gonna end up being a problem. The next scene has Emmy confronting Hajime about where he was during the release of Urza Saga. He says that he was opening packs with the boys, and wanted to know why she was so upset about that. But today is the first sealed tournament that's happened in a while, so they're really hyped to play. But when they go into the card shop, everyone seems really down and muttering a bunch of cards, which is good for our numbers. Fire Blast, Phyrexian Dreadnought, River Boa, Rogue Elephant, Stampeding Wild Beast. Our characters stop and wonder what's going on when Ito shows up in cosplay. She says that this must be the first time that they've seen rotation happening. See, all the cards from Mirage Block are rotating out of standard, so all the people are mourning the cards that they're not going to be able to play with anymore. Even Emmy starts to think about Imperial Armor leaving her deck. But Ito tries to raise everyone's spirits by starting the tournament, and it looks like Hajime is going to be playing against Fujitori in round 1. Fujitori plays a Plains on his turn, and Hajime already starts thinking about what kind of deck that he's playing against. One of the cards that comes to mind is Sarah's Embrace, which is crazy because he ends up duressing that exact card out of Fujitoro's hand. Fujitoro tries to answer back by casting both Herald of Sarah and Cradle Guard, but Hajime doesn't miss a beat and casts Exhaustion, which normally is a pretty annoying card because it won't allow you to untap your lands or creatures. But in this case, both of the creatures that Fujitoro played were Echo creatures, which you have to pay their cost again on your upkeep, and if you don't, you have to sacrifice them. And that's exactly what Fujitoro has to do. He then thinks about how much stronger Hajime's gotten as a player, but Hajime wants to get even stronger as we watch him physically plunge into the card pool, which means we get so many more references. Argothian Worm, Goblin Patrol, Opal Gargoyle, Thran Turbine, Turnabout, Pegasus Charge, Sarah's Sanctum, Claws of Gix, Exhume, Rune of Protection Black, and I'm not sure what this one is, but let's call it Hidden Predators. We don't get to see the rest of the game, but we do see Emmy and Hajime on their way home. Emmy was talking about how the tournament was light work, and she even got the card she wanted. Hajime pokes some fun at her, saying I bet it's Catastrophe, since it's a mono white card that has a board wipe effect. And this silly little text line. But the bike starts making a funny sound, so they end up walking the rest of the way home. And Emmy starts complaining about it being cold and how her feet hurt, which leads to Hajime commenting about if she didn't dress the way she did, she wouldn't be as cold. Emmy ends up teasing him, but ultimately they decide to take a break on a hillside by the river. Emmy says that she's not looking forward to exams, because she's gonna have to study again and lose her free time. Hajime then starts to think about how special the card shop must be for Emmy as he looks at his Sarah Sanctum. He wonders what she'd say if he asked if he could bring the guys to the shop, but just then a train goes by and the gust of wind throws Hajime's cards out of his hand. Hajime, that card is $300. You better not lose it. Hajime tries to grab the card, and in his scrabble, he ends up falling on top of Emmy. They have a brief moment of silence, and when Hajime goes to apologize, Emmy grabs him and flips him. She doesn't push him off though. She ends up reversing the roles, and now she's on top. Hajime asks for her to get off of him, but she ends up taunting him, saying what if she doesn't? He then avoids eye contact with her and asks what she wants. Emmy then says if the world ends or her mom figures out she's playing Magic, the future isn't guaranteed. She then makes Hajime promise that on the next release date, he's there to play with her. We then get a huge bar from Emmy, asking Hajime to share his future with her because nothing is truly forever. Hajime says he planned to hang out with her during the next one anyways, and she gets off of him. The reality of what just happened settles in, and both of our characters have some internal dialogue. But Hajime ends up agreeing with Emmy, saying he shouldn't be taking his time for granted. We then see the manager logging the tournament results, and it looks like Hajime ended up winning half of his games this time. Let's go, we got some improvement for the boy. Not only that, we see Hajime talking to his school friends, and they found a spot closer so they won't be going to the card shop, so everything's gonna end up working out. Hajime does end up getting up to help some friends who want some cash to play DDR when he drops something on the ground, and the same friend that was suspicious from earlier picks it up and sees that it's his membership card, but he sees Emmy's number on the back. And that's where this chapter ends. I knew this guy was going to be a problem, but it is super cool that we get to see Urza Saga because it's one of the best sets ever, and one of the strongest. The block Urza Saga belongs to actually had the most banned cards in Standard to this day at 19. We also got a whopping 29 new cards referenced in this chapter, but the drama's starting to build, so let's get to the next one. It starts with Gob and Chikara yelling card names as they play extended because they got beaten so bad by one of the standard decks. They yell out Goblin Grenade, Lightning Bolt, Pandemonium, and Phyrexian Dreadnought, and extended was just another format that had a larger pool that lets you play with older cards than standard. So they got beaten by a deck so bad that it made them play a different format. Woof. Fujitoro even makes a comment that it was worse than the Pro's Bloom deck, which was a deck that used Carnivorous Bloom to discard the cards in your hand to make mana, and then you would use that mana in an X spell like Prosperity to draw double the cards you discard until you could finally make enough mana to drain life your opponent in one foul swoop. But who cares about Magic, because today's the class field trip and we're going to an amusement park, people! And it looks like Hajime is tailing Emmy in Kurashima. The guy that found the membership card and was suspicious, that guy. We do get to see a conversation of Kurashima telling Emmy he wanted her in her group because he had to tell her something. Hajime having an internal battle the entire time, saying he shouldn't care what they're saying, but he gets cut off when he locks eyes with this giant cat. He says it reminds him of Pouncing Jaguar, but I think it looks more like Natural Order if you ask me. But when Hajime looks back to the two, they vanished. We then see Hajime calling out for the two as he bumps into Yakumo, but he doesn't recognize them with their hair down and dressed in the school uniform. Yakumo is actually lost from their school group, so they decide to tag along with Hajime. While they look, they end up doing amusement park stuff like riding rides and going to a haunted house, having a picnic, taking pictures. But Hajime realizes that they're going off track. But all Yakumo can think about is how much fun they're having with Hajime. Hajime ends up asking Yakumo's name, and they end up giving him a fake made up one, which he takes at face value. They continue looking, connecting over a manga that they both like, when Yakumo opens up, saying that they can't really be this way at school because it's weird for a girl to like nerdy things like this. As this is happening, they get on this water ride, and as it's going up, Hajime says that you should be the same person you are at home that you are at school, and you shouldn't care about what other people think. Yakumo realizes that Hajime is trying to encourage them, and then the drop hits and we get to see Hajime pretending to be the card Pariah. Just then they spot Emi and Kurashima going to the Ferris wheel, so they run after them. They end up getting in their own booth as the Ferris wheel starts to turn. Yakumo asks Hajime if he knows them, and Hajime says that he's friends with the guy and he plays Magic with him. Then Yakumo asks what the girl is to him, and when Hajime thinks about it, he says that she is not just his friend, and as he tries to get the words out about his feelings towards her, Yakumo grabs him by the face and says not to look her way and focus what's in front of him. Also, Yakumo's scared of heights, so they don't want to let go. The next thing we see is them bonding over a keychain that looks like a sword from a video game that they like when Emi spots them having fun. And Emi has no problem identifying this as Yakumo. The duo decides to get a picture as a memento of the day before they split up. But when they do, Yakumo yells out to Hajime that they can't wait to hang out again and calls him by his alias Cloud. This connects the dots in Hajime's mind, and he realizes that he's been hanging out with Yakumo the entire day. But it's the next day and we see Hajime attacking with his skittering scourge and his priest of Gix before God concedes. We also see the manager and Fujitoro talking about lady problems as this mysterious guy walks into the shop demanding to see Emi and Hajime. They ask for his name and he says that they can call him the one-winged angel. They tell him that Emi is not there as we see her doing karaoke and the chapter ends. I wonder who that could be. Alright, we gotta start campaigning. Are you team Emi or are you team Yakumo? Let me know in the comments. Team Emi, team Yakumo. Now we only got 7 magic cards referenced in this chapter, but we still have one more to go. And I'm ready to get right back into it, so let's start the last chapter. Remember how Emi was singing karaoke? Well, Yakumo's there too, and they're kind of tired of singing, so they decide to play some magic. Which is pretty convenient because the mystery guy wants to test Hajime's skill as well. Hajime's still stuck on the guy's name, comparing it to Sephiroth. Also, Hajime's alias is Cloud, so take that how you will. But back to the girls. Yakumo has created an infinite loop by casting Peregrine Drake to untap 5 lands, and then sacrificing it to alter Dementia to mill Emi 2 cards. Then they use the 5 mana to play Corpse Dance with the buyback cost to bring back Peregrine Drake, so they can infinitely keep casting Corpse Dance to bring Peregrine Drake to mill Emi out all of their cards, and when you can't draw a card in Magic, you lose the game. Emi asks Yakumo where they got the idea for such a powerful deck, and they say it was from Hajime's Bottle Gnome deck that they played at the tournament back in Volume 2. This leads Emi to ask about Yakumo and Hajime hanging out at the amusement park. Yakumo then counters that question by asking if that's why Emi wanted to talk to them today. This causes Emi to drop some of her deck as she tries to play it off, but Yakumo presses even harder, saying, "I thought that you had a crush on Hajime," causing Emi to drop the rest of her deck. We then get to see Windfall getting cast by the mystery guy before he concedes. Gob is watching from the sidelines though, saying that the board state looks like the deck that him and Fujitoro lost to really badly. Let's look at this board state. Voltaic Key, Scroll Rack, Cydia Brass, Lotus Petal. Yeah, this is some powerful magic. The mystery man then gets up and leaves, saying that next time he's gonna crush Hajime. This just leaves Hajime confused though, wondering what that was all about, as we hear Fujitoro talking about how his girl might have gotten a new boyfriend at this time. This gets Hajime thinking about Emi and Kurashima, and maybe that's what's happening in his life. But then we get moved to the next scene, where Hajime and Kurashima are working on their school festival project, and as they leave the school to go home, we learn about the backstory of them becoming friends and even discovering magic together before they get stopped by a train. Then Hajime confronts Kurashima about the one-winged angel act. Kurashima then says that he was trying to figure out what Emi's relationship to him was because he wants to ask her out. He then asks Hajime if it'd be okay if he confessed his feelings to Emi. Hajime does stop and think about it, but ultimately he says that he would not be okay with that. And there's only one way to settle this. That's right, a game of Magic the Gathering. The winner gets Emi, and look, the nickname scheme is driving the narrative. The game starts with Hajime using Dark Ritual to cast Carnophage and Skin Reaver. Kurashima makes a comment about Hajime using that old, tired mono black deck as he starts his turn with Ancient Tomb, and then uses it to cast Mana Vault, Voltaic Key, and Lotus Petal. Hajime recognizes the deck from the one yesterday, so he attacks all out and plays Skittering Scourge. Hajime then looks at his hand and sees Bad Moon, and says that if he can play that out next turn, he might be able to overwhelm Kurashima. But it looks like Hajime is not going to be untapping. Kurashima casts Mox Diamond, and then taps Mana Vault for 3 mana. then uses Voltaic Key to untap it and make even more mana. He then plays Tolarian Academy, and then uses it in the Mana Vault mana to play Time Spiral. Kurashima with a new hand plays another Lotus Petal, Scroll Rack, and Mind Over Matter. He then uses the combo of Mind Over Matter and Tolarian Academy to make enough mana to Stroke of Genius for 20 cards. Now with this new grip of cards, Kurashima is able to make 119 mana. We watch as the blue pips flood the page, and Kurashima casts another Stroke of Genius, this time targeting Hajime, drawing his entire deck out. Hajime just lost on turn 2 to the power of Turbo Genius, and that is where our chapter ends. We are ending the volume with both characters being tested on the feelings that they have for each other. I absolutely cannot wait to see how this pans out. And if you can't, please, if you like this video, subscribe, follow me. I will be doing the next volume, don't worry. But we had 21 new cards referenced in this chapter for a total of 75 cards in this volume, which is a new record. Let's go! But once again, thank you for all the support these videos have been getting. Plus, I've been reading the comments and it seems like some of you have started playing Magic again because of this, and that's just so cool to see. But more than anything, I appreciate that you guys watched the end. Till next time, I end my turn.